Hello, welcome back to JJ's Bakehouse. I'm Ginny and today I'm going to be showing you how to get those really smooth straight lines on your cake. So to begin with, before we even look at the buttercream for the cake, you want to make sure that everything that you're using is straight. So I've got my sponges here and I've levelled them off. Now even if you have a slight dome on your sponge, that's still going to cause you a slight bowing issue unless you're going to put a lot more buttercream around the outside and then less in the middle to straighten it out. So once you've got your sponges straight, that's going to give you the base to be able to start with the buttercream. So if you want to make my cakes, then I will put my sponge recipe in the box underneath, and also my buttercream recipe that I'm using will be in the box underneath as well. So to begin with, I've flattened all these off, so every one is all the same, they're the same sizes, and then I've got my buttercream. Now when you're going over the top of the cake, you would want your buttercream, you need your buttercream to hold the shape, so it can't be really loose. If it's really loose, it's going to wobble and topple and it's not going to hold properly. So as you can see, this is my buttercream. It's lovely and smooth. It hasn't got many air pockets in it. That's how I make my buttercream. So with this here, at the moment, if I was to put this onto a cake, it's going to tear it because it is so thick. So what we're going to do with this is you'd be tempted to add water to it or cream or whatever, but if I was doing it on top of a cupcake, then yes, I could do that. But because I'm not doing it on a cupcake, I'm doing it around the cake, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just melt this slightly in the microwave to be able to give it that texture that I want and that consistency. And then as soon as I've worked with it, it's going to come back up to this texture, which is going to keep that cake together. So I've got some in here. I'm going to add, you don't want to put it all in because you don't want to keep putting it into the microwave. So this should be enough here for what I need at the moment. So I'm just going to put some cling film back on the top of this one. And we're going to go and pop this into the microwave for around about 5 to 10 seconds, probably about 5 or 6 seconds, just to loosen it, not to melt it. So I'll be straight back to you. Right, so I put mine in for 10 seconds, and as you can see, it's just a lot easier to cut through there. So we're going to build the cake. So I've got my cake board there on the side, just going to put a bit across the bottom. And then I always work with the flatter side, so we're just going to put the cake down, take that off, and then we're just going to build all of our levels, making sure everything stays completely straight. And then as soon as they're all done, we'll come back and then we'll talk about the crumb coat and popping it in the fridge. Okay, so now you can see that my cake is all covered. All of the buttercream is completely level on the inside, and that has meant that the basis of our cake, you can already see, is straight and like a box, like it should be. And that's where we want to be. So if you've seen any of my tutorials before, you've seen that I've wrapped this in cling film now, put it into the fridge. That's one way of doing it. Or I'm going to do the crumb coat with you now. So you can do it the way I've done before and wrap it in cling film. You're just trying to protect the sides of it just to make sure. If you have a particularly crumbly cake, you might be better to wrap it all in cling film and pop it in the fridge, because then when you take it back out of the fridge, you're not going to have such a light texture on the side there, because it's just going to have held together a little bit more from the cold in the fridge. So this time we're going to do the crumb coat. So I've got the rest of my buttercream here, which is still of a good consistency. If it does toughen up, just pop it back into the microwave for a couple of seconds. Right, and I'm just going to smooth some of this over the top, and then I'm going to show you how we are going to try and make sure that we get the shape with the crumb coat, because that's the basis of what we're doing. So, I'm just going to fill the top of the cake. Right, and then I'd seen plenty of people doing this, but I just couldn't get it together myself. So, I've seen the one where, if I just show you now, I'm just going to put it there like this, and go round, like this, and it starts looking straight, and and now I know what I'm doing. I've seen so many people trying to doing that, and I just couldn't get it together. And finally, one day, the penny dropped. So I'm going to show you what goes through my brain. So I've got my cranked palette knife here. I'm going to pop it down into the middle, and then looking across here to make sure it's flat. So if there's a big space, I have a space here, I'm just going to push the front bit in so that it meets. So everything is touching and slightly come forward. So my knife now is straight and also meeting all of it. And what you're going to do is you're going to take your hand from over to here to move the turntable. Do not move your hand, and do not take your eyes off of where your finger meets the knife. The reason for that, the minute you look away, your arm drops. You don't have control. In order to keep this locked and in one place, you need to just be concentrating on keeping this hand still. So we're going to reach around, just look at that knife. Keeping it straight is all you care about. Don't look anywhere else, and take it off. And there we've got straight. So any of the parts around the side here, where there's not been buttercream, there's not enough. So then we just need to add some to the bits that it didn't meet, all around the outside. If you add more, don't worry, because you're going to take it off anyway. Right. And then we're going to do the very same thing again. So clean off that knife. This time it should be flatter because of what you did. So put it down to start with. It's all meeting. Tip it forward slightly. Keep your eye on this finger with the knife, and don't let your hand move. Just look at that finger. Don't worry about the table. Just looking at that finger. And there you go. Completely flat all across the top. Right? And that is, you need to not worry about the cake. This thing moves all on its own. You can do this without looking, but you can't do this without looking. Right, now we're going to do around the outsides. So we're just going to pop some on all the way around. Don't overly worry if it's not. Don't try and put little bits on for the moment. Just want to keep all of that in there. Also make sure that you've kept some of your other buttercream back, because you're going to be getting crumbs in this, and you don't want that going into your final buttercream. Right, so there we go. We've done the bottom, and then we're going to come up to the top. Just a backwards and forwards motion with the palette knife there. There we are. I don't think there's any trick to this. This is just putting it on. So again, just keep going backwards and forwards. Don't worry about this top part. We know it's flat on the main part there. Right. Oops. Okay. Right, now we need to get our smooth sides. A little bit of a part there where the buttercream's not touching, and it's important that you have covered everything in buttercream, because otherwise you could lift that sponge. So as you can see there, mine's all covered apart from this one little part. Brilliant. Okay, now we're going to take our bench scraper. Just wipe my hands, 1 second. Okay, I've brought you in closer because you don't need to see me. So here's my bench scraper. Now I'll always recommend you get a metal one. And that's because we're going to heat this slightly at the end, and you can't heat the plastic ones, so I would always recommend the metal one. Now I've got another trick for doing this as well. Now I've seen people, and I've gone on like this and I've done this, and look at my knife there, I don't know if you can see, but it's on a slant, and oh, I got myself in such a mess. So I'm going to share with you how I do it. So now what we're going to do is into the cake here, right, I've got to come round to the side because otherwise I can't see straight on. So into the cake, you're going to push this bench scraper right in until the bottom and the top meet, right? So on a slant, you can do it in like this if you like, just flat. Just make sure that they meet, and you can let go, and it's completely flush across the board. With your hands, hold the scraper so that your hands control all over. If you hold your hands down here, you've got more weight pushing into the bottom. If you hold it up here, you've got more weight pushing into the top. So you want to evenly distribute your weight. So pull out your scraper now, it's all meeting the bottom and the side to a 45-degree angle. And this is eye now. I want you to look down the bottom here on your bench scraper on the inside. So what you're doing is I'm looking right down the bottom so that I can see where the bench scraper meets the bottom of the cake. I can also see that it's staying on the board. So you do not look anywhere else. You don't look at the cake, you just look at one space, and this is going to give you that control again over the bench scraper. So I'm looking the other side of here, okay, and I'm making sure this stays flat the whole time and this stays in at the cake. So right down the bottom, my side, and we're going to put our hands over the top of the cake and we're going to spin it slowly and one go round. Okay, so keep looking in that one space, keep the even distribution across your fingers and just keep going. Do not look anywhere apart from down that bottom part. Never look anywhere different. It's not lifting off the board. Everything has stayed exactly the same. And there we are. We have straight away created straight. Now we're going to do that once more. Again, I'm looking down in the bottom part here of my cake. So again, put that bench scraper flat against your cake so that you can take your hand off. Make sure that it's touching all the way through. And then lift your hand over, take this out to 45 degrees, so don't keep it flat, take it out to 45 degrees so that you can see in here. And keep looking just at that, nothing else. Don't be concerned with anything else. Make sure that the scraper stays on the board the whole time and just keep going round looking in that same space. And there we go. And now we have completely perfect sides for the cake. And that now is our crumb coat. If you want to take these parts in, you can. There we go. So to take this in, all you do is clean off your palette knife, tip it slightly here, make sure that it's covering a good bit, take the board and turn the board like this. So again, rest it on and turn it. Always looking at the knife, never the cake. Again, rest it and turn, and everything is staying flush across the top. That's all you care about, that this knife is staying flush. So again, we rest it and we go across the top. Let's do it again here. Rest it and across the top. One more, rest it and across the top. And then you can do the last go on this. So again, pushing right in here if it's not flat. You want to make sure this is completely flat. Look at this finger, nothing else, and spin that board around. Just keep looking at that finger, don't look anywhere else, do not let that finger move, do not let the cake drop. And there we are. We now have our complete crumb coated cake. So we're going to put this in the fridge now, and we're going to leave it for around about half an hour, and then we're going to come and we're going to put the final layer on the top, which is going to be easy enough because we have our shape already. And then I'm going to show you just how to make sure that you get that really glossy outside. Okay, so the cake's come out of the fridge and it is firm to the touch, but it's only been in there for about 20 minutes, so I'm happy with that. Now I'm making this cake showing you today for my children, so I have added some ganache to my buttercream because I love a ganache buttercream. So that's just my vanilla buttercream, and I've added ganache to the top of that and mixed it all in, so that's really, really good. So for this you're going to need a palette knife, your bench scraper back, a separate bowl to scrape into, a bit of blue roll, and then on the back behind me, I don't know if you can see just there, I've got a pot of water boiling away on the back or simmering. So let's get started. So I'm going to put some of this across the top of the cake and just using a backward and forward motion, smear it across the top. Never worry about putting too much on because we can always take it back off. So making sure you really do hit those edges. And also don't worry if you aren't quite sure if it's straight, because we're going to sort that out in a moment. So for the moment, let's just get it all the way over the edges and cover the whole thing. And we're just going to start with the top part. So clean off that that palette knife, and the same as before. Put the knife onto the top here, flat, so that mine's pushing in further here so that it is completely straight. And then tip forward slightly. Take your hand around and keep your eye on that finger, nothing else. And we are just coming around. It's picking it up, but don't not look at it. There you go. Right, if that made any sense. While that's picking up, there's other things there that make you want to look elsewhere, but don't. Okay, so as you can see, I've got a bit of a lump up here, but we're going to go back in again and we're going to do it again. So now you don't have to make such a difference by pushing in, because we know we've just made it flat. So now, down and up, same as before, and keep your eye here. Do not let that hand drop. Just keep looking there. Spin that board. Just keep looking there, nowhere else. And there we go. Right, I have a slight pocket in the middle, so I'm bringing my knife out too far. So I'm going to go into the centre. Same again. Tip it. And we're going to come around. I'm only looking at my finger there. There we go. Right, and the last time on that. So now we're not pushing, we're just skimming across the top, really, really lightly. Only looking at that finger the whole time. There we go. Right, now we can see that it's perfectly flat. Take your bench scraper, take it across the top here, and almost like it's lying flat without you touching the back part of the cake. So you can use two hands if you want, and then just drag that cake back. And you'll see any places that you've missed, like I have here, because it won't touch it. So just take some of your mixture, just push it across the top, wipe off your scraper and we're going to go in again. Right, we're going to lay as flat as we can and just pull it back. If there's some resistance on the cake, just take one hand off and just, there we go. And then in from the other direction. There we go. And now we know we've pretty much got that middle section. So we're just going to, for the last time, go around the sides as we have done with the palette knife. Oh, I'm getting buttercream everywhere. Right, so the last time, on the top, making sure everything is completely flat. Take it on an angle, reach right round, and just keep looking at that finger, nowhere else. Lovely. And we're going to do it again just a little bit further out just to catch the edges. Actually, no we won't. We'll look after that after. Sorry about that. Now we're going to do the sides because the top is done. So take your buttercream and just, as we did before, not really worrying about how even you're putting it on because we're going to sort that out. Just back and forward motion with the knife just to put it on. And we do want a good layer on it, so you don't want to be too thin, especially if you're going to scrape some off as well. All the way through to the top, and again all the way through there. Cover all of this cake. And just, if it's looking a bit, just pull it up from the bottom. If it's too top heavy, just pull it in a diagonal. Right, we're nearly there. Okay. Right. If there's any really obvious parts, like here, where I can see, it's just easier just to fill those in before you go around with the bench scraper because it's only going to make you do it anyway. You can see I've got a couple of air pockets in there. Right, it's time to go round and see what we've done. So, it's quite messily put on there for the moment. So we're going to do the very same thing again. Hands evenly distributed all the way over the bench scraper. Then put it in flat so that it meets the whole way through. So as you can see there on mine, and let go. So long as yours has that, you should be able to let go so that it stays upright. So I'm happy with the positioning of mine, hands in the right place. I'm looking again on the other side of this at the bottom. Lift it out so you can see, right in there, and we're going to go round in one sweep. Always make sure this is staying on. If it helps, pop your finger on the bottom, and then you'll always feel that that bench scraper is on the cake board. And we're going to go round. One sweep all the way. Right. It's starting to take quite a lot off, so it stopped me halfway round. But that's fine. We're going to go in now and fill in a few of those places. So, like this one here. And you can see here we've not quite got up there. And we've got some marks all along here, even though I didn't quite get to there because we were... Right. It was quite heavy, so it stopped us. So we're going to go into this again. We're going to clean off our scraper. So to clean it off, just use the knife like this, and the front and the back, and then scrape that onto your bowl. Okay, and then back in. Evenly distributed throughout your hands. Make sure your fingers down the bottom if you want to be able to feel the board. And then take the cake, take your scraper, rest it against the cake so it's all there. It's all straight, everything's there, and ready round. Looking in that one place the whole time. Just keep going with it. Lovely. You can really see the shape of this is starting to come together now. Right, so now we have the shape. What we don't want to do is just keep pressing and pressing into this cake. So I'm going to fill in the last little parts of it, and then we are going to do what I call glide along. So here, it needs it. The top parts always seem to be an issue. So people normally go heavier in at the bottom. Now I'm deliberately just going to go around the top here and create a rim of thickness because I want this for the sharp edge across the top. And I'll explain that why in a moment. Let's just put a ridge all the way up the top. Here. All the way around. I know it looks silly. Okay. Right, then we're going to take the scraper, same thing again. But this time I'm going to look at the top. I'm going to look where this part meets the top of the cake. So I'm confident now that the bottom is okay. I want to concentrate on the top. So we're going to do the same. We're going to cut into the cake, lift it out, and I'm looking to make sure, I've got my finger so I know that this isn't coming off the board. I want to make sure that this part does not lift away from the top. So just look at this one top part, making sure it's always staying flush with the cake all the way around. There we go. Brilliant. And there we are. So we so far are having a really nice flat, brilliant shape on the cake there. So what I would do now is just bring these parts in to the side. And then any bits that you're still not quite happy with, just go round and fill those in. Really, with doing the cake, it really is filling and scraping and filling and scraping until you're happy. But we're pretty much there with this. It's looking really good. So I'm just going to make sure that water's okay at the back. And then we're going to sort that out. So 1 second. Right, and then just the last go round, really skimming. And when I say skim now, you're not pushing in, you're gliding over the top. So same way. In, no pressure, just really are just gliding it around. You don't want to take any more buttercream off the side of the cake, otherwise you're going to end up coming back to what you don't want to do. And there we are. So now I'm just going to leave that for the moment, and then we're going to come in a minute with the hot water and show you what to do. Right, now to do the next parts, we are going to need the scraper again. Also going to need a knife, and then your palette knife and a bowl. So what we're going to do now is we're going to heat the scraper and just take it around the sides here, and then that is just going to get rid of any of those air pockets that we have. So I'm going to put my scraper into my hot water there. You can probably see me through the back here. So I'm just going to pop that in there. Let it heat, and then we're going to wipe it off, and then we're going to go straight onto the cake. Be very careful, obviously, it is metal and it is going to be hot. So let's take this out, wipe it down, same as before, making sure you don't go anywhere near the heat too much. and then just come around. If it starts to drag because the heat is gone, just stop and we'll come back. So as you can see around here, it's going lovely and smooth. So this goes back in, and it's brought a lip up on the top, which is what I want as well. So again, we're heating this up. Wipe it. Coming all the way around, pushing that lip up. There we go. And the parts that it hits, obviously I've got a little section just here, but I have still got my buttercream, so I can just fill that little bit in there. Wipe it up. Don't want to put excess on. Anywhere like that, you can just fill in tiny little pieces like that, and the heat will get that for you. So in we go again. There we go. See, that's taken that really nicely just there. Obviously in certain parts the colour changes, but not to worry about that. And then if you do have parts like this bit here, then just take some buttercream, because it's a bit lower and we want it to rise. So I'm just going to add a little lip across the top. And this will push up then and give us what we're looking for. So anywhere where you don't think that there is enough to give you that lip that we need, we're just going to create one. Back out the water again. Always being very careful with your hands because it's metal. Same as before though, making sure you keep your eye in one place and one place only. There we go. And this is looking so smooth and so straight. I think we've just got this part here, and I've got a lip forming lovely all the way around. So probably just going to go one more go round, and I think then we are done. Right. So this time we're going to clutch and go all the way around. So push that in, and we're gliding all the way around. Keep those eyes in one place. And there we go. So now what we need to do is we need this lip to harden. So we're just going to pop this back into the fridge again. And once this is hardened, we're going to take the heat on the knife and we're going to cut it off, and we're going to have a perfectly sharp top. So this is probably going to take about 10 or 15 minutes in the fridge again, and then we will be done. Right, so this has been in the fridge and done what I wanted it to. So it's nice and hard to the touch, so that's the way we want it. So I have a knife that I've just had in my water on the back here. I'm going to dry off and then go in on the top of my cake, keep it flat, and again keep that knife still and stare at it. So it's all still. Put it back into the water. It's all still about keeping this arm locked. So you go in with the knife, we'll keep the knife flat. We're just looking at where I'm holding the knife and we're moving the board, okay? The minute you look at the cake, it's going to drop. So in we go with the knife. I'm staring here at the tip where it's meeting. Moving the board around. There we go. When it starts to pull, like it feels like it's going a bit tacky, stop, because then you need to just re-warm your knife back up again. And if you can see already there, we're getting that lovely sharp edge all the way across. Right. Heat it again. Again, keep this locked, arm down, just looking at where that knife meets the cake, and lift. Take these bits off, and the knife goes back in again. And you can see we're getting, by always keeping everything as locked as we can and concentrating on that, you're always getting this straight edge. And the last go. Back in again. And again, I'm looking right here and keeping my arm locked. That knife straight. Good. Now I said last one, I don't think that is. I think I'm just going to have to meet this up just a little bit. Got a little drip there. So I'm just going to use my finger just to pull it up. Right. Oh, my water's going mad. Okay. Lock back in, and then just, there's that last part there. So now, all of the top is straight. So now we need to make it look nice. So we're just going to take our palette knife, which I've had in the water as well. Everything just lives in the water now on the back for the moment. The reason I use a saucepan and not the kettle water is because you want that constant temperature. And if you're using the kettle, you're going to have to keep going back, and that's really annoying. So this is why we use water on the back. Right, we're going to do our usual. We're going to come in, and we're just going to go around. It's all completely straight there. Right, so now we're going to use the palette knife, not the palette knife, the scraper, just to skim right over the top to make it completely flat across that top part. So make sure your scraper, has been in the water for a while, it's rather warm there, so let's give it a wipe down. It's lovely and hot. Right, keep it flat. And all the way across the top. I know I've got a little box, but I just want to get that centre bit done first. So back into the water. And then with that heat, get it on as quick as you can. And back into that middle section. Excellent. And you can see there how smooth everything really is. So good. I'm just going to go in again on another. You don't have to go in this many times, but I'm just showing you how to get everything perfectly straight. So now I'm going to come across. There we go. Lovely. Right, I'm happy with that. So now obviously I've made a few marks. So with the heat, you're just going to use the heat there just to hide them. You melt each one off, and everything is just going to merge right into one another, giving you that perfectly straight edge everywhere. You've got a straight top, the sides, and a sharp edge. And all this has been done by just concentrating on where you look and not looking at the cake. You're just controlling your tools, which are your arms and your hands. And by keeping everything completely straight, your tools, which is your hands, you've created this. So I've just got a couple more bits there on the top to fix, just to make sure that it's all blending in together, so you can't see these ridges across the top. If you go a little bit far towards the edge, then you can just take your bench scraper and just very lightly, and it will just lift that back up again, and you can cut it off again. You can keep going as much as you like to get it completely razor sharp. Brilliant. So there you have our perfectly straight edged, smooth cake. This last little bit here, see on the back where you've got the seam, can you see here where the seam is? Again, you can do the same with the water. You get your hot knife and then you just smooth it just like that. And that just blends and melts it all in together. So if you have any little marks, just with the hot knife, you can see the colour of where I've just done that, and then that will just all blend into itself. So let me just tidy this up and I'll come straight back to you. Okay, so here we are all finished, and that is how you make a smooth cake with sharp edges and just the tools that you have, and keeping your hands and your eye in the right place. So I hope this has really helped you. Any questions, just pop them in the comments box underneath. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you soon. Take care. Bye bye.